The incredible true story of baby Jessica, trapped in a well for 58 hours. On the morning of October 14, 1987, what began as a typical day in the peaceful town of Midland, Texas, rapidly developed into one of the most exciting rescue stories in U.S. history. A toddler, a tragic accident, amazing rescuers, and a nation holding its breath for nearly 3 days. This is the remarkable story of baby Jessica McClure, an 18-month-old daughter who fell down a narrow well and was miraculously rescued after being lost for 58 hours. Jessica McClure had been to her aunt's house with her parents. The children were playing freely in the backyard, as many families in the United States do, a prominent feature in suburban homes that frequently serves as a play zone for youngsters. Jessica was playing in the yard with 4 of her younger cousins. Unbeknownst to them, the backyard housed a secret danger, a tiny pipeline well. This was not your usual white stone well. It was a small aperture, about 8 inches, 20 centimeters, wide and nearly 22 feet deep. A youngster may simply pass through it, which is exactly what happened. Nobody saw Jessica fall, but she vanished in an instant. When a family member came out to check on the kids, they found she was missing, and the pipe cover had come off. Panic ensued instantly. The family looked desperately and soon comprehended what had happened. They summoned the cops, but the situation required more than simply a rescue. This was not a chore for amateurs, it required pros. Jessica had plummeted too far for any family member to reach her. Police and emergency personnel went to the location, but they were unable to find her at first. All they had were faint sounds coming from deep down the pipe. That verified one dreadful truth: Jessica was still alive, but she was trapped, alone, and scared in utter darkness. Rescue workers were soon summoned to the spot. As word spread, additional specialists arrived, including oil drillers, engineers, firefighters, and even mining experts. A full-fledged operation had begun, and the entire nation was focused on this modest backyard in Midland. Media sources began live coverage, and baby Jessica rapidly became a household name throughout America. Rescuers recognized they couldn't lower anyone down the well. The shaft was just too thin. Instead, they elected to construct a parallel tunnel alongside the well, followed by a horizontal tube to reach her. However, there was a problem: solid rock. The granite around the hole was incredibly hard, and standard drilling operations were sluggish and hazardous. The crew introduced revolutionary drilling technology, such as water jet cutting, which uses high-pressure water to cut through rock and metal. It was a breakthrough technique at the time and proved important in this case. Despite this advancement, the process took much longer than planned. Minute by minute, hour by hour, the world watched as the rescue operation dragged on. Jessica remained stuck without food or water, her whereabouts unknown, her survival uncertain. The mission became a test of physical and emotional endurance. Rescuers would speak to her, shout her name, read poems, and sing nursery rhymes down the shaft, anything to keep her calm and awake while also persuading themselves she was still alive. Her quiet cries filled them with hope. After nearly 58 grueling hours, a tunnel was finally completed. But the final phase was equally dangerous. Someone had to descend into the confined location to lift her up. First, a rescuer called Ron Short, who had a collapsed collarbone and was used to operating in cramped settings, volunteered. However, another rescuer, Robert O'Donnell, was picked to perform the plunge. When Robert arrived, he discovered Jessica severely trapped in the pipe, one leg twisted above her head. She was barely aware. He carefully and quietly unfastened her and raised her up. Cheers erupted. Jessica was alive. An ambulance took her to the hospital. Doctors believed they might have to amputate her limb owing to the absence of blood circulation for so long, but they were happily able to salvage it. She had a massive scar on her forehead and a few minor bruises, but she lived. The rescue became a symbol of hope, endurance, and unity. Even President Ronald Reagan welcomed the efforts, calling them as a triumph of the American spirit. Jessica became a national icon. 2 years later, she was invited to the White House and commended for her courage and heroism, despite the fact that she had no recall of the episode. However, not all sections of the story ended nicely. Robert O'Donnell, the guy who saved Jessica, was immediately acclaimed as a hero. He gave interviews, attended events, and garnered accolades everywhere he went. However, as time passed and public attention diminished, he fought emotionally. Years later, feeling abandoned and presumably suffering from PTSD, he committed suicide. Jessica went on to have a normal life. She married in 2006 and now has 2 children. Today, she has no memory of the event that made her famous, but the scar on her forehead remains as a tangible reminder of her remarkable survival story. Baby Jessica's story is more than just a rescue. It's about human determination, teamwork, and an unrelenting will to survive. A nation united around one young boy, and the globe waited for 58 long hours before celebrating.